Welcome back to Radio Old Ridge. As you are aware, we are rapidly closing in on a parish election. Normally, these are quite dull affairs. Rarely are there more candidates than positions that need filling, and often there are no candidates for these positions. This time, however, things are quite different. For the first time that I can remember, there is an actual and quite heated campaign for our little council. There have been whispered rumors of one of the candidates being nothing more than a puppet of the rich and powerful of the valley, and posters have begun to appear, charging that the other candidate has mishandled his finances and to elect him would send the parish into an economic free-fall. To add even more interest to all of this, one resident of Old Ridge, an American who moved here to farm nearly 3 years ago, has become an outspoken advocate for the elder of the two candidates. Surprising, given the fact that he cannot vote in the upcoming election. He joins us today to give his thoughts on the election and to explain why he has gotten so involved. Firstly, let me ask, what drew you into the battle for our little council?
Well, first of all, let me say thanks for having me. It's nice to be able to voice my opinion and my concerns in something that really I have no influence on. You know what I mean? As you mentioned, I can't vote in this election because I'm not a subject. I'm not a British citizen. I am a resident and a landowner of Old Ridge. To get back to the question, what got me involved in this election? Well, as you guys know, as you probably don't know, or the people of Old Ridge know anyway, I love living here. I moved here about 3 years ago, bought a farm, became a member of the community, and started to see some of the things that were happening in the area, politically and stuff. And to be honest, I try to stay out of politics as much as I possibly can. I wasn't involved in American politics. I didn't want to get involved in British politics, but I felt like I needed to in this case because there's been some things that have gone on with certain members of the council and certain people in the parish who I'm not going to name that have struck me as odd and as wrong. And Mike, the candidate that I am fully in support of, is a good friend of mine. He's been in the area for his entire life. His family's been in the area for over 100 years. And I believe that he is not, he's a farmer himself, and he's busy, and it's a busy time of the year. Everybody's, planting and getting ready and doing the things we need to do as farmers. And he's not able to campaign for himself as much as he probably would like. And I believe that he is absolutely right for not only the council, but for the parish. Being a farmer, being able to address our concerns. This is an agricultural area, as everyone is aware. And I don't think our concerns have been addressed by the current members of the council. So that's what really got me so involved in this election that ultimately I can't even vote in.
Being a farmer, what do you think are the most important issues facing agricultural producers in the parish?
Well, I mean, obviously, being able to farm, first of all, being able to use our land, being able to use land that was put aside, for us, a long time ago. Mainly what I'm talking about is the council meadows, the grassland that, that is owned technically by the council, that was left by a landowner, many years ago, that was recently taken from us and then restored to us. Due to a counselor in another parish going through the sort of the will of this original landowner, that whole thing really soured a lot of people on the current state of the council. Maybe getting some breaks on certain things. Maybe increasing our sort of our some payments that we get. All of us are pretty good as far as environmentally, trying to be stewards of the land. I believe in that fully. That's something I took from America over here, and everybody that I've met over here is really good at it too. You can't take the land with you when you go, as they say, right? So it's very important to keep it in the condition you got it or make it better. And the current sort of climate in the council and in the political landscape it makes it very difficult for that. Everything is so expensive. Prices are at an all-time low. I'd like to see, even if it's just this area, I'd like to see some sort of price standard be set so that, especially for me, I'm a pretty large dairy producer. And it costs more money than I make to produce the milk that I sell. And the current climate of the political climate is such that I believe that there are certain members of the council and certain members of the community who would very much like to see all of our land be flattened out and put very expensive houses on. You know what I mean? And turn Old Ridge into a giant gated community. So that's one of my major issues. Having access to the land that we're supposed to have access to is my number one issue. And Mike has said repeatedly over and over and over again that if he gets elected, that he will he will work his, do his best to get on the council meadow subcommittee that's in charge of these meadows, so that because obviously because of the way land is sort of is allocated in Britain. I can't buy the meadows, you know what I mean? But I should have access to them because that's part of my landowner, ship that I arranged when I came to Old Ridge. So that's my biggest concern, and that's why I fully support Mike too.
Do you think that the current council has done a poor job of addressing the farmers' concerns?
Obviously, I can only speak to my experience in the last 3 years of being in the Old Ridge area. It seems, and I said this, in response to your last question, it just seems that the environment of the political environment of this area is such that the council, and I can't say all of them, and I don't know all of them, I should point that out. It just seems as though they would much rather us just pack up and leave and, again, turn Old Ridge into a gated community. And I don't understand that. The world is not getting any smaller. The population is not getting any smaller. There are less farmers now than there were 100 years ago by a huge margin. I think that, in this area, and obviously there are other people besides farmers that live in this area, but the majority of the people in this area are engaged in some agricultural pursuit, you know what I mean? Whether you're an actual farmer, whether you work at a store that buys and produces things that farmers, make or grow, and then sell them, whether you provide things to the farmers. It's an agricultural area, and I think the council has forgotten that. The taxes and the levies and the fees and everything else that we're charged are out of proportion with what other areas in the UK are charged for certain things. And yes, I think the council has not addressed our concerns. The grass situation was really, it was ridiculous. It should have never have happened. It took too long to resolve, and it almost came down to an ugly court battle that would have cost the Old Ridge Parish a lot of money, and could have ultimately bankrupted the parish and increased fees and taxes and levies on everything. You know what I mean? Which is one reason why we, the collective, as farmers, decided not to sue the parish over the mishandling of that situation. So yes, I do believe that the current council is not doing a good job addressing our concerns.
It is no secret that the Citizens for a Moral Britain was widely seen as a cult, and several members of the community, including yourself, if I'm not mistaken, were called out by this group. Do you have anything to say to that issue?
That whole thing, I don't know where it came from. I don't know what got it started. It was an embarrassing time for Old Ridge, to be honest. And the fact that I got called out on it as a single, a single American, not a British subject, not a subject of the Queen or any of that, a non-church going and all of that. It wasn't really a surprise, to be honest. It was a surprise to see some of the people that got called out on it. But you know what? I'm going to leave that where it is. I'm glad that sort of uncomfortable, embarrassing time for Old Ridge is over, and I'm going to move on.
Thank you very much for your time. We will be right back with a crop report after today's weather.